Euaoi.
In recent years, the topic of US state flags has gathered a lot of discussion over the internet. This is due to YouTubers like CGP Grey rating the 50 US state flags on a tier list, while some states like Minnesota, Utah, and Mississippi ended up changing their state flag designs within the recent years. While those three states ended up changing their flags, there were some states that tried to change their flag but was unsuccessful in doing so. Such as Maine, where they held a referendum in the 2024 election where they let the voters decide if they wanted to keep their current state flag or adopt an older state flag in the form of the pine tree flag, where the current flag ended up winning by a double-digit margin. And Illinois recently held a vote on whether they should keep their current flag or adopt from one of 10 recently finalized submitted designs or 2 historical designs, where the current state flag ended up winning by a pretty hefty margin. And someone from Washington state legislature created a bill to redesign Washington's state flag, but ultimately ended up not passing. The reason why so many US states have went through state flag redesigns or attempted to redesign its state flag is because of the negative stigma that's associated with these state flags, where the design features the state seal or coat of arms on a solid background, usually blue. Why these flag designs are critically panned is due to their design being overly complicated, and the fact that there are so many of them makes them hard to differentiate from each other, especially at a distance where flags are typically seen. There's even an organization called the North American Vexillological Association, or NAVA for short, that calls these flag designs SOBs, or seals on a bedsheet. One member of NAVA, by the name of Roman Mars, did a TED Talk in 2015 where he criticized US city flags for also following this seal on a bedsheet design. Since then, a lot of US cities ended up changing their flags, with some US states following not long after. NAVA's agenda ended up spreading to websites like Reddit and even flag retailers like flagsforgood.com, as well as any self-proclaimed vexillologists, where they regurgitate NAVA's propaganda about how these flags are quote-unquote bad, just because they're designed in a way that they don't approve of without even taking historical and cultural context into consideration. Because, believe it or not, these seal on a bedsheet designs actually do have a lot of historical significance to them. Let me play you a clip from my original video criticizing NAVA as for why they're historically significant. While it may not seem like it at first, the seal on a blue banner flags actually have a lot of historical significance to it, dating all the way back to the US Civil War. According to the revised United States Army Regulations of 1861, each regiment of infantry shall have 2 silken colors. The first, or the national color, of stars and stripes, the second, or regimental color, to be blue, with the arms of the United States embroidered in silk on the center. Flags were also a major symbol of pride. A regimental state standard included the US coat of arms hand-printed or embroidered on, and the name of the regiment, home state, and battle honors. Now that you know why they're historically significant, I'm going to do the opposite of what NAVA and their drones tend to do, and say nothing but good things about these blue banner state flags. The state flags that I'll be praising include the Dakotas, Connecticut, Delaware, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New York, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Virginia, and Wisconsin. Why I didn't include the state flags of Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Washington, and West Virginia is because, despite having the seal on a bedsheet look, none of those flags are on a blue banner, and I'm only going to be focusing on the bluebells for this video, even though West Virginia's state flag does have a blue border. And I also won't be talking about the state flags of Alaska, Indiana, and Nevada because despite all of them having blue banners, none of them actually feature their seal or historical coat of arms on their flag, which is why I'm not going to be talking about them. With all of that out of the way, let's start praising. Starting off this list is the state of Connecticut, with its respective flag. The design features a white Baroque shield with 3 grapevines, each containing 3 branches of purple grapes on a field of azure blue. This banner below the shield features Connecticut's state motto, Qui transtulit sustenit, which is Latin for he who transplanted sustains. It's generally believed that the 3 grapevines represent the 3 colonies that eventually merged into the state of Connecticut today: New Haven Colony, Saybrook Colony, and Connecticut or Hartford Colony. As for how this flag came to be, in 1895, Connecticut's then governor, Owen Vincent Coffin, introduced the General Assembly for the first proposal of the adoption of a state flag. The person who designed Connecticut's state flag was a woman named Abby Day Slocum, who was the regent of the Anna Warner Bailey chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, an organization that gave women a platform to express powerful and patriotic voices, preserve history, and educate the public. Slocum realized that Connecticut didn't have an official state flag and wanted to change that. And after a few designs that are similar to each other, Connecticut's state flag was finally adopted in 1897, and that's the same flag that's been flown across the Constitution state to this very day. Which means that this is the only state flag Connecticut has had from the time an official state flag was adopted to the present day. In fact, Connecticut's current state flag is actually older than 5 US states itself. With a design that's been around for that long, you could argue that it's practically irreplaceable. And if we take NAVA's quote-unquote guidelines into consideration, the flag itself has only 5 distinct colors. Sure, it's not the 2 to 3 that NAVA wants, but it's not a total hodgepodge of colors either. And speaking of colors, Connecticut's state flag is the only state flag to feature purple as a color, so it's already unique in that area. The flag itself is pretty simple in design, and I feel like that a child really would not have any trouble trying to draw the state flag. As for being distinguishable from a distance, I feel like Connecticut's state flag is one of the more easily recognizable ones of the blue banner flags. And that's mainly due to the uniquely designed Baroque shield, as well as the ribbon below it for an added touch. And if it wasn't already obvious, I unironically love this design, and no quote-unquote vexillologist can convince me otherwise. Now moving on to the Dakotas, and why I'm talking about them now rather than later is because I want to talk about the two back to back, which is why I moved them up alphabetically from N and S to D, as you can plainly see. And this flag is actually similar in design to the Greater Coat of Arms of the United States, with a few noticeable differences. The design for this flag was actually based on the flag that was flown by the 1st North Dakota Infantry in the Spanish-American War and the Philippine Insurrection. Another interesting thing to note is that the governor of North Dakota has a flag that's completely different in design from the state flag, which features the state's coat of arms and the state's motto, which reads, "Strength from the soil." North Dakota's state flag, being similar in design to America's Greater Coat of Arms, was brought to discussion in 1951 when a flag commission was appointed to redesign the state flag. Their proposed redesign was green and gold and included a sunset and a sheaf of wheat. And if it wasn't obvious, this design failed to pass. And you could argue that it's for the better given how tacky that design really looked. And one more thing to note is, I actually like that there are squiggles at the end of the bars where North Dakota's name is written on. Like, they didn't have to do that, but I just like that they made that really nice touch. Now let's talk about the Dakota of the southern variety. The design features a sky blue field with a version of the state seal in the center, surrounded by gold triangles representing the sun's rays, surrounded in turn by inscriptions of gold sans serif text of South Dakota on the top and the Mount Rushmore State, the state nickname, on the bottom. This current flag is a redesign adopted from an original design back in 1909. And was designed by a woman named Ida McNeil, who at the time was a legislative reference librarian. Her original design is the exact same as South Dakota's current state flag, just without its seal in the center and wanted to reference South Dakota's many days of sunshine. McNeil showed her design to state historian Doanne Robinson and suggested that the state seal should be placed on the backside, to which she agreed, even though she admitted she regrets that decision in a future interview. McNeil ended up leaving state politics in 1921, where she went on to be remembered as a pioneer in radio broadcasting, where she was known as Mrs. Pierre while owner and operator of KGFX Radio in Pierre, the state capital. The costliness of having a different design on the front and back was what opted South Dakota legislature to redesign its flag in 1963, which basically merged the front and back sides and then made some slight modifications in 1992 to the current flag seen today. In 2012, State Representative Bernie Hunhoff sponsored a bill to adopt a new design for the state flag based on an artwork by Dick Terms, an artist who is best known for creating a 6-point perspective system called Term Spheres, which has been recognized around the world and featured in many articles. As for the flag itself, the triangle surrounding the seal does a great job at making it distinguishable from the other states, and I also love that the flag was designed by a person who is very iconic within the state of South Dakota, and it kind of adds another element of state pride to its design. And if you want to take NAVA guidelines into consideration, there are only 4 distinct colors within this flag design, so it's not really a colorful mess if you think about it. Rounding up the 2D flag designs for the 3Ds is the flag of Delaware. The design itself features a colonial blue field with the state coat of arms inside the buff-colored diamond. Below the diamond lies the date, December 7th, 1787, written in white text, with the date in particular representing Delaware being the first state to ratify the US Constitution, therefore giving it the notion of being the first state. The buff and colonial blue colors represent those worn by the uniform of America's general at the time of the Revolutionary War and first president, George Washington. The coat of arms inside the diamond represent the importance of commerce, aka the ship, and agriculture, the wheat, the corn, the ox, and the farmer. Tribute is also paid to the Revolutionary War soldiers. The words in the ribbon banner read, "Liberty" and "Independence." There are 2 things that I like about this flag. The first is, I like how the 2 main colors on the flag of the first state represent the colors of the uniform of the first president. And it's also kind of poetic how one first is acknowledging another first. I also like how the date is added on the flag. While the vexillologists are complaining about how writing doesn't belong on flags, I think the date provides great historical context as for when the US Constitution started the ratification process, even though it didn't officially become ratified until June 21st, 1788. Let's now go to Idaho and look at their state flag. The design features a state seal above the words State of Idaho in gold letters on a red and gold band on a blue field. Yes, it has State of Idaho written twice, just in case you missed it the first time. In fact, Idaho and South Dakota are the only 2 US states to have their name appear twice on their flags. And much like North Dakota's flag, there are 2 gold squiggles on the outside of the red band. Gotta love those squiggles. The seal depicts a miner and a woman representing equality, liberty, and justice. The symbols on the seal represent some of Idaho's natural resources, mines, forests, farmland, and wildlife. The seal also contains a banner with the state's motto, Esto Perpetua, which is Latin for Let it be perpetual. While the initial flag was adopted in 1907, it has since underwent 2 slight modifications, once in 1927 and again in 1957. As for my opinion, I honestly love the red band. While some may think that it's corny that the red band results in the state's name being written twice, I think it does a good job at helping it stand out from the other state flags. The 2 squiggles not only add on to its uniqueness, but if you zoom out the flag by like a lot, the flag kind of looks like a blue one-eyed monster with a very sinister smile. And changing the state flag would result in the loss of that sinister monster smile, and would you really want that? Now on to the state flag of Kansas, which features the state seal on a field of azure, a sunflower is displayed above the seal and the word Kansas in yellow below. The seal contains a landscape that includes a rising sun, representing the east, and a river and a steamboat, representing commerce. In the foreground, a settler's cabin and a man plowing a field represent agriculture. A wagon train heads west and buffalo are seen fleeing from 2 Indians. Around the top of the seal is a cluster of 34 stars, representing Kansas being the 34th state. Above the stars reads the state motto, Ad Astra per Aspera, which is Latin for to the stars through difficulties. The initial design, first adopted in 1927, didn't even have the state's name written across the bottom, but was modified to include it in 1961. Prior to that, Daughters of the American Revolution member Esther Northrup suggested 3 broad horizontal stripes, red, white, and blue. In the upper left was a gold sunflower on a blue background with the state seal at its center. Although this was submitted to the legislature in 1917, it was ultimately not accepted. And from 1925 to 1927, Kansas was represented by a state banner, which featured the state's name and its seal surrounding a sunflower design. One thing I love about this flag is the state's motto, Ad Astra per Aspera. I honestly love how that rolls off my tongue. If I ever make a video in the future ranking the 50 US state mottos solely based on how cool I think they sound, I'm fairly confident that Kansas's would be up there as one of the best ones. And for those who complain that people can only identify Kansas's flag because it has the state's name written across the bottom, I should also mention that it features a sunflower on the top of the flag as well. And it's a very fitting design choice given that Kansas is the sunflower state. I also like the orange-yellow sunrise gradient that's present in the seal. I just think it looks pretty. From one K to another is the state of Kentucky with its flag. The flag of the Bluegrass State features a blue banner with a white seal, surrounded by the words Commonwealth of Kentucky above and sprigs of goldenrod, the state flower, below. The seal features 2 friends embracing, and around them reads the state's following motto, United we stand, divided we fall. I like this flag design for a few reasons. The first reason is I believe the state seal goes really hard. Sure, it's simple in design, but just the picture of the 2 men making amends with the motto, United we stand, divided we fall, that's all you really need. I also love the addition of the goldenrod sprigs, not only for state symbolism, but I think it's a really nice touch adding some yellow and green with the blue and white. Now heading to Louisiana, where its state flag features a rectangular field of blue with the coat of arms of Louisiana, the pelican voling herself in white in the center, with a ribbon beneath also in white containing in blue the state motto, Union, Justice, Confidence. Before Louisiana adopted its current state flag, they used a previous flag in 1861 when they seceded from the Union, and the design looks like if Vietnam and Costa Rica had a baby. Very tacky design, if you ask me. As for its current design, it's great because the pelican is easily noticeable, and it's also fitting given that Louisiana is the pelican state. It also features blood, which means this flag isn't G-rated, so it's also unique there. I'm just going to cover this one quickly since I talked about this flag a lot in my original video criticizing NAVA, and just say that I don't really have to defend this flag. The fact that it won by a double-digit margin over the pine tree flag speaks for itself, and I'm just going to move on from there. Now moving quickly over to Michigan's state flag, at the top of its seal features America's motto, E pluribus unum, which means in Latin, from many, one, with an eagle below it holding an olive branch and arrows, much like on the official seal of the United States. Below the eagle is a light blue shield with the caption Tuebor, meaning I will defend in Latin. The shield is held by 2 animals representing Michigan, the elk on the left and the moose on the right. The figure of the man shows his right hand raised in peace. The left hand holds a gun to say that although we love peace, we are ready to defend our state and nation. Below the shield is a white banner that reads, you know what, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, and say that it means in Latin, if you seek a pleasant peninsula, look about you. Michigan legislature also tried to change the flag's design in 2016, but was ultimately unsuccessful. I personally love this design because I think it feels very Michigan-y, since the seal depicts a man on a lake and Michigan has a lot of lakes. Really big lakes. The elk is a fitting design because Michigan is the current easternmost location in the country where you can find an elk. with a moose being an animal that can still be found in the state's Upper Peninsula. Almost like that these two animals bring the two parts of Michigan together. Wrapping up the M's is the state of Montana, which features the Great Seal of the state of Montana on a blue field, where above the seal reads the state's name, Montana, entirely in uppercase font in yellow. Within the seal, a plow, shovel, and pick rest in a field in front of the Great Falls of the Missouri River. The ribbon contains the state motto, Oro y Plata, which is Spanish for gold and silver. One interesting thing to note is that before this was adopted as a state flag, it was first used by the Montana infantry in the Spanish-American War. The original state flag, which was first adopted in 1905, didn't include Montana's name and just had the state seal on it. The name was added in 1981, and 1985 specified that the font should be Helvetica Bold. Also, according to Wikipedia, Montana tried to change their state flag twice in the 1970s before going with the current one in 1981. But I was unable to find any external sources to back this up, so just take that with a grain of salt. As for redesign proposals, Montana State Representative Caleb Hinkle proposed adding firearms to Montana's current state flag, and going more into detail by saying that it will include semi-automatic assault rifles like the AR-15, which drew criticism from a representative/member of the Chippewa Cree tribe named Jonathan Windy Boy. Yes, that is actually his name, and ultimately did not end up passing. As for the current design, I actually like the art style of the seal. It has this very oil pastel-y look, which I absolutely dig. I'm especially dragged to the 6 lines jutting from the mountain on the left. It kind of gives the impression that someone is yelling from the mountains. And if Wikipedia's information regarding the redesign proposals from the 1970s is accurate, then it gets extra points for making the vexillologists seethe, since their current design was chosen over the 2 bland designs that would have easily made them moist. Especially since those people consider Montana's state flag to be one of the, if not the worst, of the 50 US state flags. But man, I would have loved to see what the gun design would have looked like. It probably would have went so hard. Speaking of state flags that are generally considered to be the worst by vexillologists, the next state flag that I'll be covering is Nebraska's. While this flag features the state seal on a blue banner like most flags listed here, it should also be noted that Nebraska was one of the last states to adopt an official state flag. Nebraska legislature introduced a bill in 1925 designating a state banner. The bill was passed and became statute. The law describes the banner as a reproduction of the Great Seal of the state charged on the center in gold and silver on a field of national blue. The 1963 legislature designated the state banner as the official flag of Nebraska, almost 100 years after Nebraska became a US state. I also mentioned this in my original video criticizing NAVA, but I'll mention it again here. Recently, Nebraska's state legislator tried to change the state flag because it was accidentally flown upside down at the state capitol and went unnoticed for 10 whole days. The seal itself depicts a blacksmith working at an anvil along with various other symbols related to Nebraska during the early days of its statehood, such as a steamboat traveling the Missouri River, sheaves of wheat, stalks of corn, and a train heading towards the Rocky Mountains. As for my opinion, I like that the state flag incorporated so many rich details using only 3 colors, and you could argue that the tricolor of blue, gold, and gray easily makes it distinguishable within the gold rings, as well as following NAVA's guidelines of using only 2 to 3 distinct colors. And the fact that Nebraska legislature didn't notice that the flag was upside down for a week and a half is honestly just silly. Like, how could you not notice the upside-down anvil worker? I guess Nebraska's state flag just proves that politicians really aren't that bright. Now moving on to New Hampshire and its state flag, where the design features the state seal, the USS Raleigh, surrounded by a laurel wreath with 9 stars. With those 9 stars representing New Hampshire being the 9th state to join the Union. And much like the recent redesign push for Nebraska's state flag, I should also mention that this change was in my original video criticizing NAVA, but I'll mention it again here. In November 2023, State Representative Tim McGuff proposed a bill that would have added the state's motto, "Live Free or Die," in Times New Roman beneath the seal, which was ultimately rejected in February of 2024. As for my opinion, I love that they added the stars and the laurel wreath surrounding the seal. They could have just slapped the seal on and called it a day, but I love that they went the extra mile to make it look fancier and give it its own unique art style. As for the seal itself, I love that it features one of the original ships used by the Continental Navy, and it is the only state flag to feature a battleship, which, much like a ship at sea, is easy to spot from a distance. Now moving on to the other new with a blue banner flag, that being the state of New York. The center shield displays a masted ship and a sloop on the Hudson River, bordered by a grassy shore and mountain range in the background with the sun rising behind it. A banner below that reads New York's state motto, Excelsior, which is Latin for ever upward. Although Andrew Cuomo passed a law in 2020 modifying the flag and the seal by proxy to include America's motto, E Pluribus Unum, below it. The two women beside the shield are liberty and justice. An American bald eagle spreads its wings above a world globe. Liberty's left foot treads on a crown, which is a symbol of freedom from the Kingdom of Great Britain. Justice is blindfolded and holds a sword in one hand and a scale in the other, symbolizing impartiality and fairness. It should also be noted that the flag was originally designed on a buff banner, much like New Jersey's state flag, but was changed to blue not long after. At least the flag of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey provides a cool looking design because of it. And call me crazy, I actually think this flag's design has some foreshadowing to it, specifically regarding Justice's placement on the flag. Especially since a lot of high-profile court cases are in New York, specifically in the Southern District. Not to mention that the TV series, The People's Court, was filmed in New York City from 1997 to 2012. Since justice is a symbol that's synonymous with courthouses, it feels fitting that it's on a state flag that has a lot of televised court cases. And I bet a lot of you are thinking, well, if you think New York's state flag is so good, then why is it rarely flown outside of public facilities? To which I'll say, New Yorkers choose to show their state pride in different ways. Sure, they don't display the state flag, but they do display the flag of their favorite New York sports teams. Like the Yankees, Mets, Giants, Jets, Bills, Knicks, among many others. Even if New York changes their state flag to one that checks all of NAVA's boxes, they'd still be flying the flags of their favorite sports teams. Because apparently the real state pride for New Yorkers lies within their sports teams. While Oklahoma's flag doesn't feature the state seal, for comparison, this is what their seal looks like. I figured this flag would still be worth mentioning since this flag kinda gets grouped in with the seal on blue crowd. The design featured on the state flag is an Osage war shield with 6 crosses and 7 pendant eagle feathers above the word Oklahoma in white. Superimposed onto the crosses of the war shield is a calumet, peace pipe, and an olive branch. Before they had that flag, their first flag featured a white star with a blue outline on a red background, with the number 46 written on it, representing Oklahoma being the 46th state to join the Union. This flag was designed and made by Ruth D. Dickinson Clement, and was flown for the first time on a train to Washington, D.C. for the presidential inauguration of Woodrow Wilson in 1913. This flag ended up getting replaced in 1925 due to the association with communism from the red banner. The new design, which was designed by artist Louise Funk Fluke, she submitted this design shortly after her marriage in the Oklahoma Daughters of the American Revolution's statewide contest for a new design for the state flag. Her design was meant to represent a group of united people living in peace, using various peace symbols from different cultures. While her design did not have the state's name on it, this was adapted in 1941 as a means of fighting illiteracy, even though there's no evidence that it played a role in doing that. Louise designed this flag as a symbol of peace between the many different cultures, and I believe that she nailed it beautifully. I also think that this is a very well-made design. Unlike the new flag for the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, which also uses the same symbolism as Oklahoma's state flag, but looks all soulless and geometric. Now onto Oregon's state flag, where it not only features its seal in bright yellow, its name, and the year it became a state on it, but also features a graphic of a beaver, the state animal, on its backside. When it was officially adopted on April 15th, 1925, yes, this flag turns 100 this tax day. This flag was first sewn by seamstresses Blanche Cox and Marjorie Kennedy of the Meyer and Frank department store in Portland. In 2008, Portland daily newspaper, The Oregonian, organized a contest to redesign the state flag in anticipation for Oregon's sesquicentennial the following year. 10 finalists were chosen where the public would pick the winning design. Additionally, an 11th option, none of the above, was there, and that ended up getting the most votes. And judging by these designs, they really made the right call. In 2013, state resident Matt Norquist proposed a new design which moves the beaver to the front and has a gold bar at the hoist. This obviously didn't pass. As for the flag itself, I think it's fine. I love how the writing for State of Oregon kind of has a bump in the middle rather than just having it be a straight line. And I believe that the bump is all it needs for it to be noticeable, even when at a distance. I also think the beaver on the back is very cute. Like, look at him, the dude is just chilling. Now on to Pennsylvania's state flag, where its coat of arms depicts the American eagle on top, representing Pennsylvania's loyalty to the United States. The shield, supported by 2 horses, features a ship representing commerce, a plow representing Pennsylvania's natural resources, and 3 wheat sheaves, which stand for fertility. The olive branch and cornstalk beneath the arms stand for peace and prosperity. The state's motto, virtue, liberty, and independence, is written on a ribbon at the bottom of the flag. Throughout the 2000s, there have been 3 attempts to add Pennsylvania's name to the state flag, none of which ended up following through. And I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this. I mentioned this in my original video criticizing NAVA, but I'll mention it again here. In 2017, Pennsylvania resident Tara Stark designed the Keystone flag as an alternative to Pennsylvania's current state flag. The flag incorporating a keystone symbol, a symbol that's pretty much synonymous with Pennsylvania, into a tricolor design using the colors on the coat of arms of Pennsylvania as an intentional callback to the symbolism of the existing flag. Since then, this flag design is sold commercially, with some members of state legislature wearing lapel pins of the design. As for Pennsylvania's official state flag, much like New York's, I feel like there's foreshadowing within this design, particularly the horses. Since Pennsylvania has the highest Amish population of all of the US states, and since the Amish reject modern technology, most of them still travel by horse carriage. And because of that, the horses featured on the flag have a very Pennsylvania-y feel to it, if that makes any sense. Now heading to Vermont, where its coat of arms features a green landscape and high mountains in the background, a pine tree in the foreground, and a red cow standing on the sinister side of the field. Above the shield lies the crest, a buck's head of natural color cut off and placed on a blue and yellow scroll. Below the shield reads the state's motto, Vermont, Freedom, and Unity. The Vermonter's badge, 2 pine branches of natural color, cross between the shield and scroll. Before Vermont had this design as their state flag, the first Vermont flag, a state militia flag, was created with 17 stripes and 17 stars in the tradition of the US flag. Why there were 17 stripes and stars was because Tennessee and Ohio were admitted to the Union as the 16th and 17th states, respectively. The state's name was spelled out in uppercase letters above the stars and stripes, 15 years later, in 1817, the National Congress stepped back and authorized the current flag design of 13 stripes and a star for each state. The state adopted a new design in 1838, which reduced the number of red and white stripes from 17 to 13. Instead of a star for each state, however, there was one large 8-sided star on a blue field, with Vermont's coat of arms placed within the star. This remained as the official state flag until 1919, when Vermonters wanted a flag that doesn't look so similar to the American flag, which is why they changed it to this design seen today. This was also the same flag carried by the Vermont regiments in the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, and at the outbreak of World War I. While some may also point to the flag of the Green Mountain Boys as a historical flag for the state of Vermont, there are just some things that happen to be wrong about that statement. The first thing is, there is no intact surviving example of this flag, and all what remains of it is just the canton, which is displayed at a museum in Bennington, Vermont. There's even some speculation that the color of the silk that this canton was formerly placed on may not have even been green at all, with there being even more speculation that this flag has more ties to its neighboring state of New Hampshire, of all places. But regardless, the current state flag of Vermont has a lot of historical significance coming for a design that was used in the many wars America has fought in, and has a very Vermont-y feel with the buck's head, the pine tree branches, and even the cow in the shield, which kind of gives off Ben and Jerry's vibes. The penultimate flag I'll be talking about here is the state of Virginia, which is the only X-rated flag on here. Now I think I know what they mean when they say Virginia is for lovers. The seal features a red and green ornamental border with a female figure personifying the Roman virtue of virtus to represent the genius of the new Commonwealth, holding a spear pointed downwards in one hand and a sheathed perizonium in the other. Lying beneath the woman's foot is a personification of tyranny symbolizing Great Britain's defeat by Virginia. The royal crown, which has fallen onto the ground beside him, symbolizes the new republic's release from the monarchical control of Great Britain. Above the illustration is Virginia's name, while below it reads the state's motto, Sic Semper Tyrannis, which is Latin for, thus always, to tyrants. What's funny about this seal is that it underwent many different variations of this design throughout its history, and most of them did not even feature exposed breasts. The current seal, which is featured on this flag, was designed by New York artist Charles Keck in 1931. Guess Mr. Keck was feeling a little naughty that day. One interesting thing about this flag that I should note is that this flag was publicly displayed in the city of Gwangju, South Korea, as a way of labeling the president, forgive me if I'm butchering this pronunciation, Yoon Suk Yeol, as a tyrant. Let that sink in. Of all the anti-tyranny flags throughout human history that they could have chosen to fly, they ended up flying the flag of a region within a country that's on the other side of the world. I think that speaks volumes as for how amazing this flag really is. And last but not least is the flag of Wisconsin. The seal features a shield supported by a yeoman, representing labor on water and land. Above the shield features a banner reading the state's motto, Forward, followed by an illustration of the state's animal, the badger. The top left of the shield features a plow representing agriculture and farming. The top right of the shield features a pick and shovel representing mining. The bottom left features an arm and hammer, not the baking soda brand, representing manufacturing. And the bottom right features an anchor, representing navigation. The center of the shield features the US coat of arms, which includes the motto, E Pluribus Unum. Below the shield lies a cornucopia, representing prosperity and abundance, and 13 lead ingots, representing mineral wealth and the 13 original United States. I should also mention that this flag didn't originally have the state's name and year it became a state on it, but was added via law in 1979. As for the flag itself, I love that the shield on the flag is bright yellow, because at a distance, it looks like cheese. And it's pretty well known that Wisconsin is known for making a lot of cheese, which is a key to noticing this flag's design from a distance. So to sum up this really long video, I hope you now have a newfound respect for these Blue Banner US state flags now that you know the history behind them, the biographies of the people who made those flags, and why they do a good job at representing the state they're supposed to represent. While I made some funny comments about the flags, like how Idaho's flag looks like a monster with a sinister smile from a distance, or how like the cow in Vermont's state flag gives off Ben & Jerry's vibes, or how the state flags for New York and Pennsylvania foreshadow their cultural significance today. I kind of threw those out as little hints as for which design belongs to which state. What I'm trying to say is, don't let a bunch of arbitrary guidelines give you any guidance as for which flag is good or which flag is bad. In fact, there are some people who think flags look even nicer when there's a seal or coat of arms placed on there. And I would much rather have a seal or a coat of arms on a flag than a soulless geometric design that could easily be mistaken for 10 other designs. Anyways, that's all I have for today, and I'll see you next time.